Hi, my name is Moses Jaramillo, and I will be talking to you today about keyboards and how to assemble them. Firstly, a keyboard is something to operate a computer. It is the raw input of each key press that the computer processes and appears on your screen. It also helps coding, and there are many shortcuts on the keyboard that allows easy access for some functions on the computer that your mouse cannot. First, the parts of the keyboard is what you see here. The main part is right here, this green slab. It is called the PCB, also known as the brains of the keyboard, that communicates with the computer itself. What the PCB is the brain that actuates every time a key is pressed and sends it over through the wire into the computer, unless it is wireless or Bluetooth per se. And this PCB can come into many sizes. I have right here a full size, and we will talk about the other sizes later during this presentation. But moving on to the next part of the PCB, and is equally important, is the switches. The switches are what communicates what you are typing to the PCB, and they come in many different colors and different strengths, as when you press down a switch, it could vary in pressure. After the switches comes the plate. The plate protects the PCB and partially the switches, and it is what covers the PCB so you do not have electronics showing while typing. The penultimate part of the computer is the case and the wire. Penultimate parts, I guess. The case is what protects the PCB and switches, the keyboard in itself, and it prevents it from getting dusty or dirty and getting banged up from small nicks and cracks. The last part are the keycaps. This is what goes on your switches and have the numbers, letters, and functions on itself. However, some keyboard enthusiasts love having minimalistic design and might not even have letters, numbers, or functions on those keycaps, and they will either be blank or art. Now let's get into the assembly of the keyboard. First, you always want to test your PCB, because after you go through the hours-long process of building your keyboard and your PCB is actually broken, you have to take hours long to take it apart and change your PCB. So usually, there's an input on the PCB that allows you to plug it in before you even assemble it. This one is not a lightning cable, but a really long name cable that I should not mention. But it plugs in right here, and it activates the keyboard, and you can go ahead and test it, make sure each key works, and then move on to the next step. Speaking of, the next step has to do with the switches and the plate. Of course, this plate does not belong with this keyboard since it is roughly half its size. However, for this example, I do not have a full-size plate, so I'll be using the 60% plate. When building a keyboard and you tested your PCB, the next thing you should be doing is putting in a couple switches into the plate and assembling your plate to the PCB. To assemble the plate to the PCB, you would always put in a couple switches into the plate. I usually put in switches in each corner, and then maybe one or two in the middle. Afterwards, you take your plate with your switches and you click it in or solder it in, depending on what kind of PCB you have. And you should be ready to put in the rest of the switches into your plate and PCB. After you have all your switches in and your plate fully affixed to the PCB, you can finally put in the case. The case goes in after the plate because the plate is usually what mounts the PCB and switches to the case itself. You would set your PCB straight into the case as shown here. And after you mount your plate to the case, you would screw in each screw until your plate and PCB is snugly fit into the case. Now, unlike this keyboard, half a keyboard, it has some keycaps on. But as the last part of your keyboard, you would apply all switches with a keycap. And after that, you can plug in your keyboard and use it. And if something goes wrong, you would have to troubleshoot it. We won't be talking about troubleshooting today, but I do have something to show you. I've made probably more than 5 keyboards in my time as a keyboard enthusiast. So I have a couple of keyboards to show you. Just give me 1 second, please. This right here is my keyboard as of now. It is a 60% keyboard. It is known for that because it has 60% of the keys that a full-size has, and is usually about 60% of a full-size keyboard, as you can see. A 60% keyboard does not have a numpad, nor does it have arrow keys unless you get a specific size 60% keyboard. However, this keyboard does come with a volume knob. Here's a closer look. Now you might be wondering, what is that gray line at the top? This keyboard is known to be wireless. Let me turn it on. And as you can see, if I turn off the light, it is on even though it is not plugged in. So what that gray line at the top is used for is to slot your tablet or phone so you can use mobile keyboard accessory. I have one more keyboard to show you. This keyboard is not wireless. This keyboard is fully wired, and it is my also 60% keyboard in a cherry wood case. Now, as I was talking about before, some keyboards have a design rather than key names, as mine does. And along with that, this keyboard has a wrist rest. Not all keyboards come with wrist rest, but it is very ergonomic and helps relieve some pain if you are on a computer for a very long time. And cases can be made out of almost any solid material. And this one is made out of wood. That case was made out of plastic. And this one is made out of metal. Thank you for listening to my presentation on keyboards and keyboard assembly. I appreciate all of you coming out here and watching my presentation. Thank you.